Hello and welcome to Chesapeake Weekly. Well, a major project is kicking off in South Norfolk, a project that will address aging infrastructure. Lead water pipes do still exist in some of our older neighborhoods in Chesapeake. Now, the water treatment process and the extensive water testing that's done by public utilities makes it so that clean drinking water reaches every customer. But those lead pipes do still exist. And as these sometimes 100-year-old systems start to break, it's important to eliminate any potential source of hazards by replacing those lead pipes. And of course, that costs money. But thankfully, there is a project now that will replace lead pipes on both the city side of the system and even some residential sides of the water system. Big things are coming. That's just what this project will do. The head of the Environmental Protection Agency, Michael Regan, was actually in Chesapeake last week, and he toured the project area along with several other elected officials and city staff.
On the city side of this line right here, this is copper. That part of the line has already been replaced at one time. The line we see down underneath that it's hooked to is the main. That's a very small water main. We're going to be replacing it with big. This pipe here is galvanized. I don't want to touch it because if I touch it with a shovel, I'm going to make a leak. And then I can't show it to you because it's going to be underwater. This is what we're trying to fix and trying to replace to make sure that all of these, we have no more lead left. We're in this area because we have a project we just opened bids on about 2 weeks ago to replace a lot of the mains and the service lines here. And because of a grant, free money that's coming in from the state, from the health department, that comes from the U.S. Congress approval, we're going to be able to allow the residents who have lead service lines to replace their service lines at no cost.
So having the opportunity today to tour this neighborhood and understand the work that the city of Chesapeake already has ongoing to remediate these problems and the diligence with which they're working with homeowners to make sure that they have safe drinking water has been really informative.
There is absolutely no level of safe lead exposure in our drinking water. This year alone, EPA is distributing $7.4 billion in bipartisan infrastructure law funding. And as a part of this investment, Virginia will receive $126 million in the year 2022 alone for water infrastructure.
That's huge. We can't use utility money to replace the private line, but we have money from the health department that is going to allow us to replace the customer side of the service line at the same time. And that's why we're here. This is an incredible success story. We're fixed the city side, and due to those grant funds, we can fix the customer side, and the customer doesn't have to pay a penny.
And we'll keep you up to date on that project as it continues on, so be sure that you stay tuned into Chesapeake Television for further updates. Now, Black History Month has officially begun, and we're really excited to kick this month off with an update to what's going to be a very significant historical park here in Chesapeake. And the cornerstone of this historical park is going to be the Cornland School. Now, the Cornland School is known as one of the earliest efforts in Virginia to formally educate African-American children after the Civil War. It was built in 1902 and was in operation until the 1950s. Kind of makes history not feel quite that far away, doesn't it? Well, just last summer, the building was moved from its location on Benefit Road to the location of the future historic park, which is right off of Route 17. A ceremony was held there just last month for the Cornland School Foundation to accept a generous donation to the preservation efforts of the Cornland School from Dominion Energy.
There's so much history with the swamp, just so many stories to tell. With the maroon communities, Underground Railroad, just the construction of the swamp, what it meant for commerce, what it meant for getting products from North Carolina to Norfolk. It's just a very important thing that it's still preserved to this day in such great shape with the Army Corps of Engineers. And with the refuge that we have here, there's just a lot of different opportunities for people just to learn what they have right in their backyard. And with the Cornland School just being 5 miles away, having to find a place to relocate it to, we had this acreage here just seemed to just fit in well to tell so many different diverse stories that we have of our history here in Chesapeake.
It's just so good to see that they're preserving the school instead of tearing it down. Because they could have tore it down But I thank God that it is being preserved, and generations ahead, ahead of us, the coming generation, will be able to come and see the school that we went to. Maybe they appreciate what they have now. Well, we went to school there. I walked 10 miles, going and coming every day. In the inclement weather, whatever the weather was, we went.
The next phase will start later this summer, where we'll do full restoration inside and outside of the facility. While that's going on concurrently, we are starting the process of the historical village here at the Dismal Swamp. We'll be building a visitor center with commemoration to the Underground Railroad and the Maroon communities to tell the story of trade and commerce here at the Dismal Swamp, an outdoor classroom, and full connectivity from the Dismal Swamp Canal Trail from one side to the other, this full village of this 12 acres that we have here right off Glencoe Street.
If you want to learn more about the Cornland School and other historically significant locations all throughout Chesapeake, now is a great time to take the self-guided tour through the Chesapeake African American Heritage Trail. There are 6 stops mostly throughout southern Chesapeake, and each stop has an accompanying podcast to go with it. You'll learn about the Battle of the Great Bridge and its hero, Billy Flora, who during the fight was the last of the Patriots to retreat across the bridge under heavy gunfire, pulling up enough of the bridge's planking to stop the British advance. You'll head to the Dismal Swamp, part of the Underground Railroad network to freedom. It's a walk in the footsteps of freedom seekers, pioneers, and heroes, and it's the perfect way to spend a chilly afternoon during Black History Month all along the African American Heritage Trail right here in Chesapeake. Learn where those locations are and find the coordinating podcasts at visitchesapeake.com. Now, when we're in an emergency, we really count on those first responders to get to us quickly. And so often with those first responders comes some pretty big equipment like fire trucks. And of course, being able to drive that equipment quickly and safely is something that really takes practice. And that practice happens through the Emergency Vehicle Operations course.
I'm in charge of the city's EVOC course, which is it stands for the Emergency Vehicle Operation course. And what we're doing is we've got a new set of recruits from the academy, and we're putting them through driving the apparatus that we use each day. It's the Hampton Roads Fire Academy, which is actually all the South Side cities, Chesapeake, the Beach, Portsmouth, Norfolk. It's kind of a joint fire academy. Everyone runs under the same bylaws and code. If auto aid is needed, which will actually go into Virginia Beach and help them on calls, so they know everyone is trained to the same standard. That way the cities can work together.
So that's something to think about. Yes, sir. All right. Good? Yes, sir. All right.
We have fire engines, and we also have medic units that we put them through a course. Today we're out here with the fire engines, and we've got a cone course, and what we're trying to build is confidence in them of how the truck works versus a regular vehicle. But today they're driving a fire truck, which weighs between 50 and 65,000 pounds. So most people have never driven anything that big before. You got to cut it hard. Probably a hair late. So try to get as far on this side as you can, and that gives you room so you can make that swing into the next one, okay? The wheels are actually behind you as a driver. So it allows you to move your bumper over some obstacles like a curb or stuff in a parking lot sometimes. So whereas with a regular car you would have to stop and go in reverse, we can actually swing out over stuff and actually make a turn in a tighter area, even though the truck is as big as it is. Long, but it's gonna be close. You see your wheel? Got room? Okay, it's all right. But you see how you can look out and see them?
Yes, sir.
All right, and then straight through. They did a 8 hours of classroom, which goes over the Virginia state laws, and also talks about, the handling of the vehicles and how the truck drives different. We talked to them about pivot points, which is anyone who's ever driven a trailer, you drive a trailer with a pivot point. So you use the back wheel, and that's how you turn around corners, and it allows you to handle the truck better. Now remember, when we're going backwards, you want to shoot for a spot about a foot off the cone, all right? And when you finally go to turn the wheel all the way Don't go halfway. Crank it all the way. And as you pass that cone, get in the mirror to pick up your next one, all right?
Yes, sir.
Okay? Once your back wheel gets there, cut the wheel all the way. And now get over here in this mirror and pick up your next cone. See it? All right, now straighten your wheels up a little bit. Remember, you're shooting for about a foot. Straight back, start to turn a little bit. Now cut it hard. Cut the wheels as far as it'll go. There you go. And as you come around the cone, as soon as your tailboard passes it, pick up the next one. There you go, good job. As soon as you see it, yep, straighten up, shoot for. They're recruits, so it's kind of a, we can say a fun thing that we do with them, kind of challenging each other amongst themselves. Anytime the person driving hits a cone, they do push-ups. So it's kind of a way for them to get their physical activity in, but also they're challenging each other. You know, whoever hits the most cones obviously might not be the most liked that day, but then the next day could do really well. A lot of times they may come out nervous, thinking, oh, I haven't driven anything big like this before, but they actually listen sometimes the best. And some of them end up being some of our better drivers just because they listen and they pay attention to what we're saying. And sometimes that person struggles, but also that person could be the person who picks up what we're telling them right away and actually does very well out here. I guess you could say, hey, some people are just born to be a driver, but no, if they listen to the instructors that are out here and do what we're asking of them and pay attention, most of them actually become good drivers on their own. And we're just teaching them the basics out here today. Once they get out in the field, that's where they'll, you know, their officer will take them into a parking lot and they'll start actually driving more and get more experience. But it's the basics that we're trying to let them grasp today. It's all about, with these trucks, as big as they are, is setting yourself up with the way they swing. What I've found is I may get in a truck with someone and the way that I teach just might not work. And then another instructor will get in and all of a sudden it just clicks. So I'll ask that recruit, hey, what did he tell you that was different? And it might be a small thing, but it just got him to think differently. And it caused him to actually, it clicked with him and now he could drive the truck. So those are kind of just picking up little tips even from the other instructors or the recruit.
Well, 2 weeks in a row, we were treated to some of the white stuff. I'm not sure if we can say treated for those of us who were not so thrilled. Surely we're done with it for the year, right? Well, whether or not we get more snow, we'll definitely get more cold weather. And so it's still really important to make sure that our vehicles are up to snuff for the cold weather. So it's not too late to winterize your car if you haven't already done so. Here are some tips.
As a precaution, and what we do at the city garage is we exert a little extra vigilance in checking our cooling system performances, making sure our freeze protection levels are where they need to be, changing all of our washer fluids over to a winter grade washer fluid, a little more careful inspection of our tires, belts, and the obvious stuff that an owner can check themselves.
And finally, since we so rarely get snow around here, and hopefully I'm not jinxing us again by saying that, we want to go in again to how we plow. So those plows get dusted off every year, aren't always used, but this year obviously we've used them already for 2 storms. And we want to keep reminding the public about how we plow here in Chesapeake. Because we don't get snow very often, it's always a good thing to remind everybody about. So let's get into how we plow. Most of the time before we plow, we treat. The pre-treating process starts with a brine saltwater solution. Trucks apply the brine to roads, but mostly to bridges and overpasses, which tend to freeze first. Brine isn't always ideal when the storm starts off as rain, because the rain can just wash it off the road. Now, when slick roads are the issue, our salt spreaders get to work. In years past, we used to use a combination of salt and sand, with the idea that the sand helps with traction while the salt melts it. But it's been shown that the sand doesn't really work all that well when applied in this manner. Plus, it can be a big mess. So we now only use salt, which really helps with melting. And finally, the plowing begins once snow accumulation reaches 2 inches. So at that point, plows hit the emergency routes first. Those are the major north, south, east, west routes throughout the city, like Battlefield Boulevard, Route 17, Military Highway. Then they move on to primary roads, which are those roads important for businesses, such as Bainbridge Boulevard and Cavalier. And finally, secondary and connector routes. But we do not plow residential streets. See, because we only see snowstorms every once in a while, our resources and our operator experience is just plain limited. And residential streets bring with them some challenges, such as narrow street width, parked cars, limited turning space. We're quite different from those northern cities who get plenty of practice every year. So at any time it snows, we just ask that everybody has patience with us. Thank you so much for being safe and staying off the roads. And hopefully that'll be the last time we have to deal with it this year. That's all we've got for this week. Coming up next will be an update on what Parks, Rec, and Tourism has going on this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week.